they don't want to argue about it. And they think if you think that there is a genuine debate to be had here, then you're just the enemy.
I noticed that you managed to sustain for a few years at least being a restaurant critic for the left-wing Independent newspaper, whilst being a columnist at the right-wing Spectator. I mean, do you find it easy to maintain relationships with people across the political spectrum, or is it all just too tribal these days?
It certainly it feels like it's a bit more polarised than it was. Brexit, I think, had quite a polarising effect. But generally, no, I've always found it quite easy to be friends with people I don't agree with. And I guess it helped kind of growing up in the household I did. So my father was a sort of lifelong socialist, and initially in the Communist Party, then the Labour Party, then the SDP, then back to the Labour Party. But, you know, there were always kind of people with different views around the kind of supper table, and, you know, they liked nothing more than to argue. That was their kind of, you know, meat and bread to them. One of the things actually that surprised me about the direction the kind of left has taken with kind of, you know, the woke and identity politics is that they've sort of lost their passion for arguing, seemingly. You know, when you try and engage a member of the woke left in an argument about, you know, should trans women be able to compete with women in women's sport? Should they have access to safe women's spaces and so forth? They don't want to argue about it. And they think if you think that there is a genuine debate to be had here, then you're just the enemy. You know, if you think that there is a conflict between sex-based women's rights and trans rights, you're a transphobe, you're a bigot, I don't want to talk to you. Or sometimes, you know, if you ask them a question, you know, a slightly kind of challenging question, pointing out a little bit of tension, you know, in their worldview, they'll say, oh, well, I can't be bothered to explain it to you. It's exhausting explaining these things to people like you. It's like, well, you know, 25 years ago, sitting around my father's dinner table, people like used to love nothing more than explaining this stuff to people like me and arguing about it and, you know, staying up late, finishing bottles of wine and endlessly kind of debating and arguing. But they seem to have lost their interest in arguing. Or maybe it's just they think it's a more effective way to advance their agenda is to pretend that it's kind of beyond dispute, and anyone who challenges it is just completely beyond the pale.